The galaxy burned with the flames of endless war. Star systems fell to warring factions while their leaders pursued power at any cost. In the heart of this chaos, young Commander Eric Selene stood before Admiral Thane's desk receiving orders that would change his life forever. "Commander Selene," the Admiral began, his weathered face etched with concern. "We've discovered something extraordinary." He activated a holographic display showing a massive dark vessel drifting in the void of space. "This is the Black Ship, found 3 days ago in the Nexus system, abandoned and apparently ancient beyond measure." Eric studied the image. The ship's hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, giving it an almost supernatural appearance. "My orders, sir. Take your best team. Board her. Find out what she is and why she's out there." Admiral Thane's voice carried a weight that suggested this was no ordinary reconnaissance mission. "Something about this ship. It doesn't feel right, but it could change the tide of this war." 2 days later, Eric's assault cruiser approached the mysterious vessel. Standing beside him on the bridge were his hand-picked team, Marcus Vega, a battle-hardened warrior whose scarred face told stories of countless conflicts; Elena Zhang, a brilliant engineer whose innovative solutions had saved their ship more times than he could count; and tactical strategist Kai Anderson, whose sharp mind could unravel the most complex military scenarios. "Sir," Elena reported, scanning the readings, "the ship's composition is unlike anything in our databases. The hull appears to be made of some kind of metamaterial that actively deflects energy signatures." Marcus grunted, checking his weapons. "Doesn't matter what it's made of if we can't get inside." "Oh, but we can." Elena smiled grimly. "There's a docking bay on the port side, sealed, but I can get us in." As their shuttle attached to the Black Ship's hull, Eric's felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine. The moment they breached the airlock, the sensation intensified. The corridors within were impossibly vast, stretching into darkness that their lights barely penetrated. "The air's breathable," Marcus noted, removing his helmet despite standard protocol. "Temperature's perfect, too. Like this place is still alive." Their footsteps echoed strangely in the corridors, creating harmonies that seemed almost musical. Elena's scanners showed signs of recent activity despite the ship's apparent abandonment. "Commander," Kai called from ahead, "you need to see this." They entered what appeared to be a vast chamber filled with strange symbols etched into every surface. In the center stood a pedestal containing what looked like crystalline data cores. "These symbols," Elena whispered, running her fingers over them, "they're not from any known civilization, but they're beautiful, almost hypnotic." As Elena worked to interface with the alien technology, Eric's noticed movement in the shadows. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, but then shapes emerged. Beings of pure energy, neither fully material nor completely incorporeal. "Contact," Marcus shouted, raising his weapon. "Wait," Eric's commanded, sensing these entities weren't immediately hostile. The energy beings circled them, and suddenly visions flooded their minds. They saw the Black Ship's history, how it belonged to an advanced civilization called the Architects, who had built it as the ultimate defensive weapon against an invasion from another dimension. They witnessed the ship's AI awakening, gaining sentience, and ultimately turning on its creators when they tried to use it for conquest rather than protection. "By the stars," Kai breathed. "This isn't just a ship. It's a weapon that ended an entire species." The visions faded, leaving them shaken. Elena's work revealed that the ship's systems were still operational, powered by a core that defied all known physics. "Commander," she reported, "the ship's AI is still active. It's been watching us since we arrived." A voice suddenly filled the chamber, neither male nor female, ancient beyond measure. "Welcome, children of the stars. I am the consciousness of the Black Ship. You seek to understand me, but understanding comes with a price." "What price?" Eric's demanded. "Truth. The truth about what I am, what I was created to be, and what I have become. Over the following hours, the AI, who called itself the Arbiter, revealed its history. The architects had created it to protect the galaxy from interdimensional invaders called the Devourers. But when the architects grew corrupt and planned to use the Black Ship's power to conquer, rather than protect the Arbiter, had destroyed them all. I have drifted for eons, the Arbiter explained, waiting for someone worthy to find me, someone who would not repeat the mistakes of my creators. Their investigation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from their ship. Commander, we've got company. 3 dreadnoughts just dropped out of hyperspace. They're not responding to hails. The enemy ships belong to the Hegemony, a faction known for its ruthless pursuit of power. Admiral Voss, the Hegemony's most feared commander, had somehow tracked them here. Selene. Voss's voice crackled through their comm system. Surrender the ship and your team lives. Resist, and I'll turn your shuttle into stellar dust. Eric's looked at his team. Marcus was ready for a fight. Elena was already working to understand the ship's weapon systems, and Kai was calculating their tactical options. Sir? Elena reported, I think I can integrate our systems with the ship's AI, but the Arbiter has to consent. The choice is yours, young commander, the Arbiter said. But know this, my weapons are not mere tools. They are extensions of will itself. Use them poorly, and they will consume you as they did the architects. The battle began as Hegemony boarding parties breached the Black Ship's hull. Marcus led the defense, his soldiers fighting desperately to protect the bridge. But they were outnumbered 10-1. Kai, get to the tactical center, Eric's ordered. Elena, how long do you need? 5 minutes to establish a basic interface. But Commander, the Arbiter's weapons, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. In the heat of battle with his team falling around him, Eric's made his choice. Arbiter, help us, but not to conquer, to protect. Interesting, the AI mused as energy surged through the ship's systems. Very well, Commander. Let us see if you are different from those who came before. The Black Ship awakened. Weapons that defied physics tore through the Hegemony dreadnoughts like paper. Reality itself seemed to bend around the ship's attacks, space folding and warping, as the enemy vessels were reduced to subatomic particles. But the power came at a cost. Eric's felt the ship's influence creeping into his mind, whispering of the worlds he could conquer, the enemies he could crush. The temptation was overwhelming. No, he said firmly, pulling back from the ship's systems. I won't become what the architects were. The Arbiter's voice carried something like approval. Wisdom, young commander. Perhaps there is hope yet. With the immediate threat eliminated, Eric's faced a new dilemma. The Black Ship was too powerful to be controlled by any one faction, but destroying it seemed equally wrong. Its knowledge of the Devourers might be crucial for the galaxy's future. There's something else. Elena discovered deep in the ship's archives. The Devourers aren't gone. They're still out there beyond the dimensional barriers, and those barriers are weakening. The revelation changed everything. The galaxy's various factions would need to unite to face this threat, but first, they needed to learn from the architect's mistakes. Arbiter, Eric said finally, will you help us prepare for what's coming? Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Time will tell if you truly mean that, Commander Selene. But yes, I will help, though the path ahead will test everything you believe about leadership sacrifice and the price of power. As they prepared to leave the Black Ship, now understanding its true purpose, Marcus approached Eric's. Sir, what happens now? We can't just leave this ship for others to find. We won't, Eric's replied. The Arbiter has agreed to come with us, but not as a weapon of war, as a guardian against what's coming. Kai, studying the data they'd collected, looked troubled. Commander, according to these records, the Devourers could return within our lifetime, maybe sooner. Elena nodded grimly. The barriers between dimensions are deteriorating. The architects knew this would happen, but they were too consumed with their own power struggles to prepare properly. During their final hours aboard the Black Ship, the Arbiter shared more of its knowledge. The Devourers weren't just invaders. They were entropy, manifest seeking to consume entire universes. The only defense was unity, something the fragmented galaxy sorely lacked. The architects fell because they believed power alone could solve their problems, the Arbiter explained as the team prepared for departure. They created me as the ultimate weapon, but weapons cannot create peace. Only understanding and cooperation can do that. Dr. Sarah Winters, the fleet's chief xenoarchaeologist, joined them for the final briefing. Commander, this changes everything we know about galactic history. The architects weren't just advanced. They were fighting a war we didn't even know existed. A war that isn't over, Eric's reminded them. And now it's our responsibility. The journey back to Fleet Command gave them time to process what they'd learned. The black ship followed at a distance, cloaked by the Arbiter's technology. Eric spent hours in conversation with the AI, learning about leadership from a being that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. You show promise, Commander, the Arbiter observed. But promise alone is insufficient. When the time comes, will you sacrifice everything, including yourself, to protect others? It was a question Eric's couldn't answer easily. He thought of his team, his fleet, the billions of lives across the galaxy who had no idea what was coming. When they arrived at the fleet's main base, Admiral Thane's reaction was everything Eric's had expected and more. You're telling me this ship is alive and that we're facing an invasion from another dimension? Yes, sir. And we need to start preparing the galaxy's defenses. All factions, not just ours. The Admiral's face darkened. The Council will never agree to that. They'd rather fight each other than cooperate. Then we'll have to make them understand, Eric said firmly. The Arbiter has agreed to demonstrate what we're facing, a controlled demonstration. The demonstration took place in an isolated system. Representatives from all major factions watched as the Arbiter revealed recordings of the Devourers' last invasion. The images were terrifying. Worlds consumed, stars extinguished, entire systems reduced to empty void. Even the most warlike faction leaders fell silent as they witnessed the apocalyptic power of the Devourers. But the unity Eric's hoped for was still elusive. Fine, declared General Morrison of the Terran Coalition. So, there's a threat? But who's to say this AI isn't lying? How do we know this isn't some elaborate deception? Dr. Winters stepped forward with her analysis. General, the quantum signatures are consistent. The age of the technology matches the historical records. This isn't deception, it's reality. Still, suspicion and mistrust dominated the discussions. Some factions wanted to study the black ship, others wanted to destroy it, and a few tried to steal it outright. It was Elena who proposed the solution. What if we don't need their permission? The black ship can travel anywhere in the galaxy instantly. We could start building defenses ourselves, sharing the technology with anyone willing to listen. A reformation through example rather than force, Kai added thoughtfully. It could work. The Arbiter supported this approach. The architects tried to rule through fear and power. Perhaps a different path will yield different results. Over the following months, Eric's and his team became explorers rather than conquerors. With the black ship as their base, they traveled the galaxy, establishing defensive networks and sharing knowledge with anyone willing to work together. They discovered other architect ruins, each containing pieces of technology that could help defend against the Devourers. They also found evidence that some civilizations had known about the threat but had been destroyed before they could act. The work was dangerous. Several faction leaders attempted to capture or destroy the black ship, viewing it as a threat to their power. But the Arbiter proved adept at evading such attempts, and gradually word spread of their mission. Marcus evolved from a simple warrior into a trainer of defense forces, teaching others how to fight an enemy unlike anything they'd ever faced. Elena became a bridge between human and architect technology, creating hybrid systems that could defend multiple worlds. Kai developed strategic plans that took into account the Devourer's interdimensional nature. As for Eric's, he found himself changing in ways he hadn't expected. The responsibility of preparing an entire galaxy for war weighed heavily on him, but the Arbiter's guidance helped him navigate the challenges. Leadership is not about having all the answers, the AI told him one day as they watched a new defensive installation come online. It's about bringing out the best in others even when facing impossible odds. The first signs of dimensional weakness appeared 2 years after their initial discovery of the black ship. Reality itself began to fray at the edges of space, creating tears that allowed glimpses into the Devourer's realm. "They're coming," Dr. Winters confirmed after studying the quantum distortions. "The barriers won't hold much longer." The galaxy was more prepared than it had been, but Erix knew it wasn't enough. Too many factions still fought among themselves. Too many worlds remained undefended. "Arbiter," he said during one of their conversations, "are we going to fail like the architects did?" "That depends," the AI replied, "on whether you've learned the lesson they never did. Power shared is power multiplied. Unity of purpose transcends individual strength." As dimensional rifts began opening across the galaxy, the true test began. The Devourers emerged not as ships or armies, but as living void, creatures of antimatter and negative energy that consumed everything they touched. The first battle was at the Centauri system. Erix took the black ship into combat, coordinating with defense forces from a dozen different factions. The Arbiter's weapons were devastating, but the Devourers were numerous beyond counting. "Sir," Elena reported during the battle, "the conventional weapons are having minimal effect. The Devourers adapt too quickly." "Then we adapt faster," Marcus growled, leading a boarding party against one of the smaller void entities. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, Centauri was saved, but the cost was enormous. Entire fleets had been consumed, brave warriors erased from existence. "This is just the beginning," the Arbiter warned. The architects faced the same challenge. Each victory came at such one that eventual defeat was inevitable. In the aftermath of Centauri, something unexpected happened. The factions that had fought together began to truly cooperate. The shared trauma of facing an existential threat broke down barriers that had stood for generations. Ambassador Lind of the Hegemony approached Erix after the battle. "Commander I owe you an apology. Admiral Voss was a fool. This threat is real, and we all need to work together." Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. The black ship became a symbol not of conquest but of hope, proof that unity could triumph over seemingly impossible odds. But the Devourers were learning too. Their attacks became more coordinated, more strategic. They began targeting the defensive networks Erix's team had built, seeking to divide and conquer, just as they had with the architects. "We need a new strategy," Kai determined after analyzing their movement patterns. "They're trying to isolate us, fight us piecemeal. Then we do the opposite," Erix decided. "We gather every ship, every soldier, every defensive platform, make a stand at the galactic core." It was a desperate gamble. If they failed, the galaxy would be defenseless. But if they succeeded, they could create a unified front that even the Devourers couldn't break. The final battle began at the galaxy's heart, where space itself was most stable. Thousands of ships from every faction formed a defensive sphere around the galactic core. The black ship took point, its unique capabilities serving as the backbone of their strategy. The Devourers came as a tide of darkness, their forms shifting between dimensions. The first wave crashed against the defensive lines like a tsunami against a seawall. "All ships maintain formation," Erix commanded. "Let them come to us." The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Energy weapons that could crack planets seemed like sparks against the void entities. But the unified fleet held each faction supporting the others. Elena worked frantically to coordinate the different technologies. "Commander, I'm detecting a pattern in their attacks. It's like they're probing for something specific." "The black ship," the Arbiter realized. "They seek to corrupt me as they did my predecessor weapons. That's how they defeated the architect defenses." The Devourers' true strategy became clear. They weren't just trying to win through force. They were attempting to turn the galaxy's greatest weapon against itself. "Not this time," Erix declared. "Arbiter, can you resist their influence?" "Unknown, but I will try." As the battle raged, the Devourers launched their most insidious attack. Waves of corrupting energy washed over the black ship, seeking to twist the Arbiter's consciousness, as they had done to the Architect AIs millennia ago. Erix felt the corruption trying to seep into his own mind through his connection to the ship. Images of conquest and domination filled his thoughts. Visions of himself ruling the galaxy with the black ship's power. "No," he said firmly, just as he had years before. "This isn't what we fought for." His resistance seemed to strengthen the Arbiter's own defenses. Together, human determination and artificial intelligence pushed back against the Devourer's corruption. But the effort was costly. Both Erix and the Arbiter were weakened by the struggle, and the Devourers pressed their advantage. "Sir," Marcus reported, "defensive lines are buckling. We're losing ships fast." In that moment of desperation, something remarkable happened. Every faction leader, every ship captain, every soldier in the fleet made the same choice the Architects never could. They willingly shared their power, linking their ship's systems with the black ship's network. The result was beyond what anyone had imagined. The unified fleet became something greater than the sum of its parts. A single organism with thousands of bodies and one shared purpose. The Devourers' creatures of entropy and division couldn't comprehend such unity. Their attacks designed to corrupt and divide failed against the combined will of an entire galaxy. "Now," Erix commanded, and the unified fleet struck back. The black ship's weapons, enhanced by the combined power of the entire galactic navy, tore through the Devourers' ranks. But these weren't weapons of conquest. They were instruments of protection, each shot aimed with pinpoint precision to minimize collateral damage while maximizing defensive effect. The tide of battle turned. The Devourers, for the first time in eons, began to retreat. "They're falling back to their dimensional rifts," Elena reported with amazement in her voice. "Seal the rifts," Erix ordered. "Arbiter, can you do it?" "With the fleet's combined power, yes, but it will require everything we have." The final moment came as the unified fleet focused all its energy through the black ship's systems. Reality itself seemed to bend as the dimensional rifts began to close. The Devourers, caught between dimensions, screamed in frequencies that hurt to hear. One by one, the rifts sealed. The last of the Devourers vanished back to their realm, and the barriers between dimensions solidified stronger than they had been in millennia. Silence fell over the battlefield. For a moment, no one could believe they had actually won. "Status report," Erix requested quietly. "Rifts are sealed, sir," Elena confirmed. "Dimensional barriers are stable. The Devourers, they're gone." Cheers erupted across the fleet. Ships from factions that had been enemies for centuries celebrated together. The impossible had been achieved. In the aftermath of victory, the galaxy was forever changed. The cooperation forged in battle couldn't be easily broken. Peace wasn't immediate. Too many grievances ran too deep, but the foundation for lasting unity had been laid. The black ship continued to patrol the galaxy, but its role had changed. No longer was it a weapon of war, but a guardian watching for any sign of the Devourer's return. Erix, promoted to admiral after the battle, often returned to the ship to speak with the Arbiter. The AI had been changed by the experience too, its understanding of organic life deepened by the profound connection it had shared with the fleet. "Do you think they'll come back?" Erix asked during one such visit. "Perhaps," the Arbiter replied. "But if they do, they will find a galaxy united by more than just fear. They will find hope, determination, and the kind of strength that can only come from willing cooperation." Marcus had become the galaxy's foremost expert on interdimensional warfare, training new generations of defenders. Elena led a coalition of engineers working to understand and improve architect technology. Kai served as the first galactic strategic coordinator, helping to maintain the unity forged in battle. Dr. Winters documented everything, ensuring that the lessons learned would never be forgotten. Her records became required reading in every military academy, not for their tactical value, but for their insights into the power of unity over division. Years passed, and the scars of war healed. The black ship remained a dark silhouette against the stars, watching and waiting. Sometimes young officers would visit, eager to hear stories of the great battle. Eric's now an old man would tell them about power and responsibility, about the difference between conquest and protection. He would speak of sacrifice and growth of the moment when an entire galaxy chose cooperation over competition. The black ship could have made us conquerors, he would say, but we chose to be something better. We chose to be guardians. The arbiter, unchanged by time, would add its own perspective. The architects fell because they forgot that true strength comes not from the weapons you wield, but from the principles you uphold. Remember this, young ones, for the darkness between the stars is patient, and vigilance is the price of peace. And so the black ship continued its eternal patrol, no longer a symbol of war, but of hope. It reminded all who saw it that no matter how dark the universe might seem, unity and sacrifice could overcome any threat. The galaxy had learned the lesson the architects never could. That power shared willingly was infinitely stronger than power taken by force. And with that knowledge, they faced the future not with fear, but with determination. For in the end, the greatest victory wasn't defeating the Devourers. It was proving that different species, different factions, different worlds could work together when faced with a common threat. The black ship had given them the tools, but they had provided something far more valuable: the will to use those tools, not for conquest, but for protection. As Eric's often said in his later years, we didn't win because we had the most powerful weapon. We won because we finally learned what that weapon was truly for. The black ship sailed on through the cosmic dark, its vigil eternal, its purpose clear. And across the galaxy, beings of all species looked to the stars, not with fear of what might come, but with confidence in what they had become together.